thank you all for joining us on this beautiful summer day. And we're excited today to present to you with Shannon Blaz. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did, yeah.
Thinking in my head it looked like Blaze, but no, she's pronounced Blaz. So she is from Blaz Design, and she's a web designer and graphic designer. She has been pretty much all over Northern Ohio. She grew up in Wellington, has lived in Elyria, Cleveland, and now she's actually in the Toledo area, so she services her businesses throughout Northeast and Northwest Ohio. And she actually is an alumni of LCCC, so we're proud to have her. She's one of our success stories. And she then went to Cleveland State University to study her graphic design. She's been a freelancer now for the last 6 years, and she's going to tell us all about the designing of websites. So if you could please, without further ado, I introduce Shannon.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for coming. Good morning. Thanks for taking time out of your day to come listen to me talk about websites. So I'm really passionate about web design, so hopefully you guys learned something. So one of the most important things to me when I'm building a website is making sure that not only is it really well designed, but also that it's really effective and engaging, that it's optimized for user experience, that it's optimized for search engines. So you really want people to be able to find your website, otherwise it's not really doing anything for you, right? So today I wanted to talk to you about 10 elements that I like to incorporate when I build an effective website. Many of the components that I'm going to talk to you about today, they're hopefully going to be really easy for you to implement yourself if it's a website that you're maintaining yourself, or if you work with a developer, hopefully they'll be pretty easy for your developer to kind of take and run with. So it was important to me to leave you with hopefully some takeaways, some things that you can start incorporating to hopefully start seeing some improvements in your website. And just to preface this, it's not a top 10 list. These are all 10 equally as important to me when I'm building a site. So we'll start with number 1, an attention-grabbing headline. So I'm sure you've all been to a website where at a glance you're not even sure what the site's about. So maybe they use a lot of technical jargon that you're just not familiar with, or maybe they just use an image rotator and there's no text, no headline. So having this strong attention-grabbing headline can really give you a chance to erase any doubts or concerns a potential customer might have. So a good headline will grab your reader's attention. So you only have those few seconds when someone lands on your website for the first time to catch their attention. So you want to really try to engage them to keep them reading and continuing to scroll down through your site. A good headline will inform your visitor why he or she should convert or take action on your website. So you can answer questions like, what's your specialty? What makes you stand out? Why should they choose you? Things like that. And finally, a good headline gives your reader a basic understanding of what your website's all about. So again, you just want to capture them at a glance and tell them who you are, what you do, what you're all about. So I wanted to follow each of these up with a popular, or some of them are popular website examples, just so you can get a visual for what I'm talking about and a good example. So the first one, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Spotify. So I really like their headline because they put their deal front and center. You know, you got 3 months for 99 cents. And the descriptive text around it really tells you exactly what Spotify is. It's unlimited music. So at a glance, pretty much anyone coming to the site for the first time will have a really good feeling and sense of what the site's all about. So moving on to number 2, having a primary call to action. So after your headline, you really want to give your users something to immediately be able to take action on, should they choose to do so. It would sort of be like in the Spotify example, if they didn't have a button or anything for the user to be able to take action on. You want to give that to them right front and center. So a good call to action will be visible and help contrast the other elements surrounding it. So I like to recommend using a button instead of just a text link. And you should try to make it so it doesn't blend in with your page's other elements. A good call to action has a clear and compelling message. So I encourage you to avoid using generic things like submit or buy now or click here, and instead try to be more descriptive using things like start your free trial or contact for a free quote. And finally, a good call to action is strategically placed around supporting content. So you'll want to make sure that your call to action is surrounded by content that tells the user what they're going to be taking action on. So you can also put it near things like testimonials or pictures that show the action that they'll be taking. So an example for this one, I think Netflix does a really nice job of using a call to action that really pops out. It's a red button that really nicely contrasts the dark background. It has a description on the button, join free for a month. So I think it's a really nice example of this in action. Number 3 is imagery that conveys your message and is true to your brand. And I'm sure that doesn't answer your question exactly, but hopefully this point gives you some more information about the imagery and choosing the right imagery. So imagery is really something that tends to have an immediate effect on visitors when they land on your website, and that effect can be really good if it's the right kind of imagery, and it can be kind of bad if it's not the best imagery. So good website imagery will be, of course, relevant to your message and your brand. So I always like to encourage people to use images that are pretty literal. So for me, for instance, I do web design and graphic design, so I think it makes sense to show off photos of my work or pictures of me at work because I do work directly with clients. So I think sometimes it's okay to use abstract images, but a lot of times I think you need to be pretty literal with your images because, again, it's all about just capturing their attention at a glance. And good website imagery will be high quality. So I think the last thing you would want is for someone to land on your website and for this big image that you're using on your homepage to be either blurry or pixelated. And it's also important now that people are accessing websites on so many different devices to kind of test your pictures across a variety of different devices. So make sure they look just as good on a phone as they do on a really big screen. And finally, good website imagery is as authentic as possible. So whenever possible, whenever someone has the budget that allows for it, I really encourage them to hire a professional photographer to take authentic photos of either them or their product or them working with their clients or other people in their organization, just to give that feel of authenticity whenever possible. But I do know that sometimes you just don't have the budget, so stock photos are great for that. And if you can pick the right ones, they can definitely do just as good of a job. And so just a quick example for this one, the site Pocket, which is a way to save articles online to read later, just to give you an idea of what it's about. They do a really nice job with this picture that really frames nicely around their headline and their calls to action. And because they did use some authentic imagery, I think it was easy for them to work with the layout that worked for their website. So number 4, your unique offer. So I always like to have my clients think about the things that they want to know when they're coming to a website for the first time, especially if it's a service that they're not familiar with. So they'll probably ask things like, what's in it for me, or why should we choose you? And this is your time to really answer those questions, and again, another opportunity to ease any concerns potential customers might have. So a good offer will paint a clear picture. So I always like to break things down really simply, but exactly what a visitor will get by choosing your product or service. A good offer will sell more than just a product or service. It's going to sell a solution to a problem or an outcome or an experience that the person might have. And then finally, a good offer, whenever possible, will shoot for having a 10x factor. So are you able to show your reader at a glance that the product or service is truly worth 10 times the money that you're charging for it? If you can do that, then it's going to be so much easier to have them make that purchase decision. So a quick example for this one is LastPass. I think they do a really nice job of having a concise statement about how their product helps to simplify your life, manage your life online. It offers up LastPass for free, and then it offers the premium version for $1 a month. So if this product's guaranteeing to help manage your life online, I think $1 a month makes it seem pretty worth it. Pretty much hits that 10x factor and then some. So number 5, testimonials that help tell your story. So visitors coming to your site really want to know that they can trust you before they consider making a purchase or reaching out for more information. And so I think this is where solid client testimonials can really come into play. So good testimonials will be from real customers. So really try to avoid making up testimonials whenever possible. If you don't have any real authentic testimonials yet, you can always ask previous clients for some, or just wait until you have some from real customers before adding them to your site. And good testimonials offer up specifics about your product or service. So whenever possible, you want to ask for testimonials that show specific applications, that give proof through numbers and data and things like that. And finally, good testimonials help back up your claims. So whenever you're making a really big, bold claim on your website, it's great to follow that up with some real testimonials that prove those claims that you're making. So a good example for this one is on DreamHost. They show a quick gallery of user testimonials right on their homepage. It doesn't take up a lot of real estate, but it does a really nice job showing these authentic testimonials, these authentic experiences that people have had using DreamHost. It shows relevant stats for how long people have been customers, the company that they work for. They even include images of the person in theirs. So number 6, easy, intuitive navigation. This one is a biggie. So I think we've probably all been to a website where just you don't know where to go. Either the navigation system is massive and it's hard to navigate for the first time, or there's just not enough navigation to get you where you need to go without first having to click through a bunch of pages to get where you need to be. So that's where a really efficient, easy to use navigation system comes into play. So a good navigation will have links to the site's most important pages on every single page. So whether you're on, a blog page, a contact page, the home page, you should see those consistent navigation items. It shouldn't change from page to page or section to section. A good navigation should be clear and easy to read with a consistent design from page to page. So you definitely don't want to do, maybe one of the collapsed hamburger menus on one page and then a full navigation on another page. You just want to keep that experience consistent so it's not disorienting for the visitor. And finally, a good navigation should typically be no more than 3 levels deep. So especially with smaller business sites, there's usually no need to start getting into 4 levels of drop-downs. Those usually get a little bit clunky to use, and it's just very confusing for visitors to sites. So a good example of this is HubSpot. I think they just have a really nice, unique navigation system. I've not seen it too many times before. They have a really nice use of their sub-menu. It's really clear and easy to read, and I think technically it's 2 levels deep of navigation, but they still pack in a lot of content, and it's still very, very easy to use and understand for a first-time visitor. Number 7, fresh, original content. So the biggest thing to keep in mind when you're working on a website, when you're building a website, is people are really coming to your site for the content. The design, the visuals are all really great, but they're really there for the content at the end of the day. So with that being said, if a visitor lands on your homepage and you have maybe some news items that are from 2 or 3 years ago, or maybe you have an outdated Twitter feed, a Twitter account you don't use any longer, people can get a little bit confused by that and kind of wonder if you're still in business, what's going on there. So one of the best things you can do for your site, for your visitors, and also for your SEO is to be constantly evolving it with fresh information. So some ideas for fresh original content. You could post a new blog or news article monthly. So we're not talking about a huge commitment. I know when I talk about adding a blog to people's sites, they sometimes start panicking because it's just one more thing to do. So this could be something simple like posting about a conference that you attended or talking about a new employee that you hired. They can be quick, simple little posts that just keep that content ever changing on your website. Another idea for some original, fresh content could be adding in new case studies or portfolio pieces, depending on your industry, just to showcase the new work that you've done. And again, I know for an industry like mine, it's really easy to come up with new case studies, new projects that I've worked on, but different industries might not be so easy. And then finally, fresh original content. You could update your content, and this is something that you should do regularly anyway, to add in new services or revise old ones. So I know personally once a quarter I kind of comb through my website and just make sure that all of the information is still accurate, all my links still work. If you have any pricing information, you definitely want to make sure that that's as up to date as possible. Add in new pictures, things like that. So this website example is one of the more lesser known, I'm sure. This is a web design and development company based somewhere in the Midwest, and they just do a really, really nice job of constantly adding in new, fresh content in the way of both blog posts and in new client work that they've recently completed. So again, this is just a really good way to get users coming back to your site for fresh information, and it's also a really good way to organically help increase your SEO. So number 8, social media integration. So a great way to further and a lot of times more easily connect with your visitors is through social media. And any sort of accounts that you use regularly, it's always a great idea to, at the very least, include them on your website. So you'll probably find also that you're a lot more active on social media just because it's a lot easier a lot of times to post on Instagram or Twitter than it is to go through and update your website. So ways to integrate social media include, at the very basic level, adding social media icons to your header or your footer. So again, this is just any platforms that you're using regularly, it's always great for them to have a presence on your website so people can find you and engage with you in other platforms. Another idea for integrating social media is adding social media sharing buttons to any shareable content on your website. So anything that you want people to share, engage with, like different blog posts, maybe different photos on your website, if you give away any freebies on your website, or if you have infographics, any content that would be shareable. And then finally, adding social media feeds to your website. So I know a lot of the popular platforms like Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, they all have widgets that make it fairly simple to go ahead and integrate those right with your website. And that just gives you more of that fresh content without even needing to update your website necessarily. So a good example for this one is a property company, 360. I just really love the Instagram feed that they have. They styled it really nicely to integrate well with their website and matches the design of their site. And it's, again, just another way that they're showing revolving content without actually updating their website. They're just posting to Instagram, and that's doing the work for them. So number 9, this one is a biggie for me. This one is making sure that your site functions equally across all platforms. So what I'm talking about with this is responsive design. And so if you're not familiar with that, basically at sort of the simplest level, it's just making sure that your site scales down well to even the smallest of devices. So your site's gonna perform well, whether someone's viewing it on a phone, a tablet, a desktop computer, a big TV when it's being projected, any sort of platform. And I think we've all heard the warnings that more and more people are starting to access your website on those devices, so it's ever more important that the functionality especially be the same across no matter what device you're viewing it on. And so at the very basic level, you'll want to ensure that your website's built using a responsive template. And now developers are even starting to suggest working with a mobile-first approach, where the smallest size is designed first, and then they kind of work their way up to the larger screen sizes. So a responsive website will scale down well on any device, like we mentioned. A responsive website will retain all primary functionality regardless of the device it's being viewed on. So if you have, a registration form on your desktop site, you'll want to make sure that you also have that on the mobile version of your site when it scales down. And then finally, a responsive website will not eliminate any content just because it doesn't fit within the smaller screen size. So I know as a developer, we used to be able to get away with hiding things on phones just because who went to websites on phones, but now everyone goes to websites on phones, so there's no more hiding anything. Everything needs to be on every device. So an example for this one is Smashing Magazine, which it's a tech blog that covers coding and design and things like that. And so they've always been kind of at the forefront of new design practices. So it's hard to tell in the example, but it's a 3-column layout, which as you start to resize your screen or as you start to view it on different devices, you'll notice that the columns start collapsing. So for a tablet, you get 2 columns. For a phone, you get 1 column. But no content is lost. It's simply stacked on top of each other, and the elements are rearranged really elegantly so that everything's accessible no matter what device you're on. And then number 10, design consistency across all pages. So the overall look and feel of your site should definitely exist across all pages, no matter what sort of content you're looking at. If it's a contact page, a blog post, a service page, you should be able to tell that it's part of your website. So things like color schemes, fonts, font sizes, backgrounds, that sort of thing. So design consistency includes things like using similar layouts for similar types of content. So you'll probably want all of your blog posts to use the same basic layout. All of your service pages will probably have the same basic layout, that sort of thing. And using consistent typefaces and color schemes across all pages. So if you're using purple headlines, you want all of your pages to use purple headlines. You don't want one page where there's red headlines because it just gets disorienting for visitors when they're on your site. So an example for this one is Airbnb. I think they do a really good job of maintaining that design consistency, even though they use a ton of different page templates, whether you're booking a place to rent or you're on their help section. You're noticing that design consistency, the same fonts and colors, same navigation, same placement of the logo. So it's just a really cohesive look and feel throughout. And that is it. Those are my 10 elements. So if anyone has any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them. Or if you have any questions about your specific website or website that you work on and you'd like to talk to me afterwards, definitely let me know. Yes?
Google something and they're looking for a company or a product, and the first ones that appear, how do you get higher on that list?
Sure, that's search engine optimization, which is a whole beast in and of itself. You can do a lot with SEO. There's people who that's sort of their primary function, their primary specialty. So I do a little bit of basic SEO with any website that I create personally, and then with my own website, I've found that the way that I've been increasing my rankings, I'm by no means at the top, but just the consistent posting of blogs. I try to really focus my blogs around things that are happening in the Cleveland area, just to let people know where I'm at. So it's a process. It's always going to be a process. There's no quick way with SEO, unfortunately. I think we all wish that there was, though.
It seems these days I'm get more requests and I should say more calls and in meeting and networking with people. So many people are into website design and development now. Big companies, small companies. What advice do you have for the best way to find and interview somebody who does that, to make sure you're getting somebody that will be a good fit with there being such a broad breadth of people that do it and different range of costs that they charge?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing is really going to be deciding what sort of budget you're looking at, because that's really going to narrow your options. So if you want to keep your budget on the small side, I'd say maybe up to $5,000 to invest. Then you're probably looking at like a freelancer, a person who works for themselves doing it. If you have a little bit more to put behind it, then you can start going to the larger companies and start interviewing them, sitting down with them, having conversations, and that sort of thing. But I think it's really also deciding to what sort of capabilities you want the website to have as well. So do you need a website that's really robust, that has a lot of functionality, that does some crazy stuff? If so, then that of course will mean that you'll have to have a higher budget, but that means that you're probably going to want to work with one of those larger shops that have, a big team of developers that can tackle the sort of thing that you're looking for. Now, if you need just a quick website that's 5 pages, I say probably hire the freelancer, because you're going to save a heck of a lot of money if it's just more important for you to get a presence up and running. It really is going to depend on what it's included, but I would say, a static website that is built on a content management system like WordPress or Squarespace, I would say working with a freelancer, you'd be looking at probably between $2,000 and $3,000. If you're working with a larger company, just because there's going to be so many more people involved, they'll be charging you at least $10,000. Because there's a project manager, there's a designer, the development team, there's meetings. So I think there's a big difference in the costs just for those reasons alone.
With technology changing so quickly, how challenging is it for you as a web developer to stay on top of all of that while still managing all your customers? In what ways do you go about learning about and staying on top of all the latest technology?
Absolutely. It's always changing, and there's always a new platform out there. So my thinking when it comes to the different web platforms is I usually wait around a while before I start trying the new ones just to see if it's something that's going to stick. If it's something that, I have people asking me about all the time, like, hey, will you build a Squarespace site for me? Hey, I want to use Squarespace. So I started learning Squarespace just so I could be fluent in it. I built a website for a friend just to learn the platform. So anytime that there's a new platform, I'm a little bit hesitant to kind of dive right in because you never know what the lifespan of it's going to be or if people are even interested in it. And then I also want to just research it to make sure that it's a good thing to offer people. So that's kind of how I try to stay on top of it. But like you said, there's so much technology out there. There's so many do-it-yourself website creation tools. So I do the best I can with it, really.
If no one else has a question, I'm going to ask one of you, and I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Oh, no.
Can you show us an example of one of the websites you've designed that you're most proud of?
Oh,
and why
sure.
you're most proud of it? Was it something that was maybe challenging or unique or...
Yeah, you know what? I can show you here. I'm going to actually show you my new website because it is the website that right now I am most proud of. It was the most challenging by a long shot because I'm the worst client. I had no idea what I wanted. I had no idea. So I was a terrible client, and I'm really, really happy with how the design of it came out. I'm really happy with the results I've been seeing. I've been seeing a lot of improved conversions on my contact form since adding a small contact form right on my homepage. I've been seeing a lot more traffic there since updating it. And overall, I'm really happy with the improvement that I made over the site before. So that's kind of my current favorite website, which I'm not trying to plug myself. It's my favorite project.
Under your portfolio, do you have examples of some of your other ones?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, if you go to blazdesign.com, no. So this was a fun one that I've done recently. It's for a nonprofit organization, Cleveland Roots. This was just it was a cool project that he was working to create, trying to build up farming within underprivileged communities in the Cleveland area. So it's something that he's just kind of starting up. This person is pretty much funding it 100% himself right now. And this website, I like how it turned out. I liked the collaboration with the client, and he's been seeing some really positive things since getting this up and running.
When was that one actually active? You said it was up and running, so when did it actually get up and running? Was it recently?
It was up and running probably the end of May, I want to say, is when he went live with it. And I don't think he's made any super big announcements about it being live yet because we're still kind of working on some things behind the scenes, but it's been a fun one to work on.
Well, thank you for your time today, Shannon.
Thank you very much.